ready to dive into the world of Italian wine. You've sent us a bunch of really interesting excerpts about Sangiovese.
Sounds like fun. Where do we start?
Well, every good wine journey starts with a little backstory, right?
Mm.
Our sources trace Sangiovese way back to ancient Italy, like way back Etruscans and Romans.
No kidding. That's going back a bit.
Right. It's older than we are, that's for sure. So I was reading that the name Sangiovese comes from the Latin sanguis Jovis.
Sanguis Jovis rings a bell.
Oh yeah, blood of Jupiter.
That's it. Blood of Jupiter. I mean, you don't get much more epic than that for a wine name, right?
Talk about a tough act to follow.
Yeah.
But really, Sangiovese wasn't just a drink back then, it was a big deal culturally. I mean, even medieval monasteries were growing it.
Yeah.
Imagine that history.
Monks tending vines centuries ago. That's a cool image. But how do we get from monasteries to Tuscany? Like, what makes Tuscany the spot for Sangiovese? It's all about the terroir, that perfect combo of climate, soil, tradition. Sangiovese really thrives in Tuscany's warm, dry summers. But then it gets those cool nights really important, especially in regions like Chianti Classico.
Ah, Chianti Classico. Now we're talking.
Exactly, but also Brunello di Montalcino, Dino Nobile di Montepulciano. Each area has its own thing going on, so you get all these unique flavors.
So every bottle is like a snapshot of a specific place.
Yeah, like Chianti Classico, those clay and limestone soils give the wines this amazing structure.
For sure.
Yeah, you know how the wine feels in your mouth? But it also gets this distinct minerality from the soil, a bit earthy, sometimes even a touch salty. It adds to the complexity.
Minerality, huh? So I'm like actually tasting the earth.
You got it. It's subtle, but it's there. But then you go over to Montalcino, where the soils are warmer, sandier, and you get a totally different Sangiovese, much bolder, more intense.
Wow, that's wild. It's like Sangiovese needs its own five-star hotel to really thrive, huh? But what about in the vineyard itself? Is it high maintenance?
Oh, it definitely likes a little TLC, pruning, canopy management. It all matters. And a lot of growers are going organic and biodynamic now. No synthetic pesticides, herbicides, all that.
More natural, huh?
Exactly. Speaking of shaking things up, remember those super Tuscans we were talking about?
Oh, yeah. Those
Yeah.
rebels. What makes them so... Fill me in.
Okay, picture Italy in the 70s. Everything in the wine world is, very traditional, by the book. And then these winemakers come along and they're like, what if we blend Sangiovese with, say, some Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot?
Yeah.
Totally unheard of back then.
They were breaking all the rules.
Big time. And the thing is, these blends were amazing. Complex, age-worthy people loved them. They really shook things up.
I love that. Now, we've talked about its ancient roots, its journey to Tuscany, but what I really want to know is, what am I in for when I take that first sip? What does this blood of Jupiter actually taste like?
Get ready for a flavor explosion. You'll usually get those bright red fruit notes, think cherry, raspberry. But here's the cool part. Often you'll also find these captivating floral aromas like violet, rose.
Hold on, floral aromas in wine. That's a new one. I'm intrigued.
It's a game changer. And aging adds a whole other dimension. Some Sangiovese, especially those aged for a while, they spend time in oak barrels, which adds layers of complexity like spices, vanilla, clove, even leather, tobacco.
Wow, it's like a whole symphony of aromas and flavors. Now, I definitely need to explore these different styles of Sangiovese.
Me too, from a young, vibrant Chianti Classico to a big, bold Brunello di Montalcino. There's a whole world to discover.
Okay, so you've convinced me Sangiovese it is. Before we jump into all the different styles, are there any legendary producers I should know about? I know our sources mentioned a few names, families that have been doing this for centuries.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the greats families like Antinori, Frescobaldi, Biondi Santi. These are the Sangiovese masters.
Wow. So we've got history, we've got terroir, we've got taste. I'm feeling like a Sangiovese pro already. What's next on our deep dive?
Well, since we're talking about these iconic producers, why don't we kick things off with a classic? Chianti Classico. Chianti Classico, great choice. It's got this awesome balance of zesty, acidity, earthy flavors. Makes it super food friendly. Speaking of, what would you pair with this, by the way? What's your go-to Sangiovese pairing?
Oh, man. You know me, always thinking about food. I gotta go classic Tuscan,
Yeah.
right? It just feels right.
Totally. Those wines evolved with the cuisine, so the pairings are like meant to be. Think about it. Simple pasta, tomato sauce.
Oh, yeah.
The acidity cuts through the tomatoes. The fruitiness goes great with the herbs.
Stop. You're making me hungry. But, okay, what about those big Tuscan meat dishes? Like bistecca alla Fiorentina? Gotta have the right wine for that.
Now you're talking. You'd want a bolder Sangiovese for that Brunello di Montalcino, maybe. the tannins in the wine, that drying feeling you
Mm.
get. They're perfect for rich meats. They cut through the fat, make everything taste more balanced.
Tannins, they're like the secret weapon for a flavorful steak, huh?
Exactly. They're like flavor, meet your match. Plus, you get those savory notes that go so well with that charred flavor from the grill.
Oh, man, that's what I'm talking about. But, okay, say you want something a little different. Any curveball pairings in those sources?
Definitely. Sangiovese is surprisingly versatile. One that caught my eye was aged cheese.
Aged cheese, really. That's different.
Sounds weird, but it works. Think like a sharp, nutty pecorino toscano.
Mm.
Maybe even a Parmigiano Reggiano, those complex cheeses with the acidity and fruitiness of the wine magic.
Okay, I'm adding that to my list for sure. It's amazing how the right wine can just elevate anything. Okay, but what about dessert? Surely Sangiovese can't handle dessert, can it?
You'd be surprised. Sangiovese and dark chocolate, a match made in heaven.
Get out. I would have thought you'd need something sweeter for chocolate.
You might think so, but a Sangiovese with a touch of residual sugar, that's the natural grape sugar left over it, strikes the perfect balance, especially one with those ripe, almost jammy fruit notes.
Okay, you've convinced me Sangiovese and chocolate tasting this weekend.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been eye-opening. But now I'm curious. We've talked about the past, the present. What about the future? What's in store for Sangiovese?
Great question. And yeah, our sources actually get into some of the challenges and opportunities ahead. Climate change, for one.
Yeah, climate change is impacting everything these days. What are producers doing to adapt?
They're getting creative. Some are trying different pruning techniques. Got to keep those grapes from getting sunburn, right? Others are looking for cooler vineyard sites, even planting higher up where it's naturally cooler.
Wow, so climate change is really making them rethink things.
It is. And there's a big movement towards sustainability.
Oh.
Farming that's good for the environment, helps preserve the land. Lots of Sangiovese producers are going organic, biodynamic, reducing those synthetic pesticides and all that.
So it's about the whole picture, not just the wine itself.
Exactly. Finding that balance between tradition, innovation, sustainability. Making sure Sangiovese is still going strong for generations to come.
Love that. Sounds like the future of Sangiovese is bright.
Absolutely. And speaking of the future, we have a thought-provoking question for you and our listeners as we wrap up our Sangiovese journey.
Okay, lay it on us. Hit us with that final thought-provoking question.
All right, here it is. You've gone deep on Sangiovese, from way back in the day to right now. Learned about the growers, the challenges. So the question is, how do you see this Italian icon now? Has this deep dive changed your perspective?
Ooh, that's a good one, honestly. I don't think I can look at a bottle of Sangiovese the same way again. It's not just a wine, it's like this whole story. People, places, traditions, all wrapped up into one.
Right. Every sip is a culmination of everything, the soil, the climate, the winemaker. And knowing that, it adds a whole other dimension to the experience.
Totally. I find myself really looking at the labels now, checking out where it's from, how it was made. I feel like I'm appreciating it on a whole new level.
That's what it's all about. Knowledge opens up these new ways of experiencing things. And in this case, it's the amazing, delicious world of Sangiovese.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm.
Cheers to that. And to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive inspires you to grab a bottle of Sangiovese and start your own journey. Until next time.